Stop memorizing openings. Here is what you should do instead. You should have one opening that you understand very well, and you can, in the best case scenario, play it against everything. For example, here, you know that I love the Philidor defense. I recommend to play it as black, and it's so powerful. And then so many of you suggested I might try it as white as well. And here is what I'm doing it. I am doing it for the first time in my entire life. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be fine, because even though I don't know any theory, like it's literally the first time I have ever played d4. I always play d4 as white. But I play this Philidor defense. I don't care about anything. I might even just castle. But normally you play here d3, e4, knight to d2, knight to f3, this bishop to e2, then you play c3, and then you launch some kind of an attack. Of course, playing it as white gives you additional opportunities, just because you have one extra tempo, which is so nice. But my main point is, you don't want to rely on opening theory. If you're under 2000 ELO, this is just a waste of your time to memorize those 20 moves long variations, which you might even never get in your real games. Like, if you learn those super grandmaster openings, if you follow the games, or you have bought some advanced opening courses, they are great for me. But for you, the problem is you might never get those positions. And so here I want to show you how you play those schematic openings. Instead of relying on a specific line, I can do that against literally absolutely everything. And I can do that both as black and, as you can see in this game, as white. I'm playing against a very strong opponent, 2200 rated ELO, yet I'm still executing the same thing I'm doing for the last 10 years. So let me illustrate you the plans, because I don't want to just show you the first 7 moves here and say, well, goodbye, you are gonna handle it on your own. No, I want to show you how you transition into the middle game and what kind of middle games you're gonna have here. Middle game plans that you can execute as white. So one plan is always to attack on the queen side. Another one is to put some pressure on the center, because against the Philidor defense, they normally have 2 pawns in the center. In this case, my opponent is playing that, which is very solid, but at the same time, he's not controlling the entire center. I might, for example, just play rook e1 and prepare the move e5. In some cases, it might be very, very dangerous. Every time they have this knight and bishop, they should be careful with the move e5. It reminds me of the London system with the colors reversed, and that means that this e5 idea could be crucial here. Let's calculate. If they castle, can I just play e5 immediately? Because this bishop might be hanging there. It takes... yeah, that should still hold everything together. I mean, I can take his piece. Okay, he takes immediately, which is weird, because he's given up voluntarily a pair of bishops. We cannot take with the knight. We are gonna lose. Although, maybe even that is possible. Let's calculate. Takes, knight takes e4. He's protecting that bishop, but somehow his pieces are clumsy. If I go away with my bishop somewhere, I don't want to block my own queen. But let's say I play bishop c4. How do you defend all of those pieces? Because if you play f5, well, at least that pawn is hanging. If you play knight f6 to defend, yeah, maybe that is going to help you, because then everything is protected. Okay, let's play simple chess here. We just take it back, and we have now a pair of bishops advantage, and I'm gonna illustrate how you use that to your advantage. If I can play d4, in general, in the Philidor defense, it's always great to put your second pawn to the center if you can, and I see zero problems with it, because I have so many defenders. And if he takes, he's gonna open up the position, which is great if you have a pair of bishops. You always want to open it up so that your bishops are much more powerful. I just need to make sure I don't blunder any stupid sacrifices here, which I sometimes do. Please be careful with that. But in this case, he exchanged his bishop. I don't think it's ever possible. My bishop on f3 is so great. And otherwise, I'm threatening e5 here just to win a piece, so he cannot ignore it. He has to either exchange or maybe play e5. But again, that's going to open up even more, which should favor me. Yeah, I think my opponent is right here to take some time, because it's important to decide which plan are you going for, whether you just take or you play e5. The more I think about it, I think e5 is his best chance. Because at least if I take, he's winning a lot of time. I can start taking here, and then here. Although, to say the least, he's gonna have this isolated pawn. Even if I don't step back and allow him to take, I just play knight b3. He's gonna exchange that, I take it back. We have a normal position, all of the pieces are equal, but he has this huge weakness, this isolated pawn, which is a very pleasant position for you to play against. And if he plays that, I'm gonna illustrate exactly how you do it. If he's gonna take here, however, then he's gonna have a slightly more passive position. And in addition to that, I'm gonna have a pair of bishops. Yes, he does go for it. I will always take with the knight here to maintain my bishop's advantage. Yes, now I even have a choice. Do I take with the rook or with the bishop? Because the bishop is pretty good on f3, but this way I might relocate it to c2 to control this diagonal. I'm not sure what is better. If I take this, knight f6, I can even play that to like start launching some attack, but I'm not sure if it's going to be successful, and if it's not, then the rook might be clumsy there on h4. Maybe not. Let's do it, because it feels to be more active, and I always advocate for choosing the most active opportunities. I do have a pair of bishops that should help me to launch an attack. So let's see, knight f6. Of course, I can just step back. I mean, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. The bishop is good on f3, controlling all of those squares where the knight can go here. So yeah, I still have a choice. Let's think about it, because rook e2 makes sense, so that when the second rook comes, for example, to the e file, it could double immediately. Okay, he's actually not even attacking me, but I can still play rook h4 to defend that guy and prepare some kind of an attack. If he plays h6, I might consider at some point at least this sacrifice. That might be really dangerous. Obviously, I can always play g3. If he plays g6, then yeah, then it's not that simple to somehow create dangerous threats. Maybe bishop g5 though. Yeah, let's go for it. If I have already decided to try it, it cannot be too bad. It's just that you have to assess whether you are going to have enough threats there for your opponent. But it feels like he's helping me. He's going to the other direction, and at the same time, like, this move is multi-purpose. I attack, start at least my initiative there, and at the same time defend against my opponent's threats, so that's always good. And if he plays knight f6, I can again play bishop g5 and threaten to open up his king, and he would need to waste even more time. Okay, he plays that. He opens up the center even more, but that is weird. To say the least, once I take, this rook is controlling the entire fourth rank. Maybe the drawback is, like, I still haven't developed all of my pieces, which I should. And maybe he wants to play f5. He wants to be as aggressive as possible. For example, after that. Although I still have queen h5, he takes queen h7, king h7, king f7. Yeah, maybe I don't have enough. But f5 is risky. Maybe he plays knight f6. Can I take knight takes and queen h5? Yeah, that is a checkmate, or at least I win that knight back. And if he plays g6, what do I do then? Then I don't see anything particularly scary for him. Maybe queen d2, queen h6. Then I have knight f6, but I'm gonna have bishop g5. Yeah, hard to say. If after g6 I again start with bishop g5 to stop knight f6 from coming, that can work. He plays g6, he weakens it even more. Yeah, let's play bishop e4. I'm creating some threats. I don't want to make it easy for my opponent. I want to put as much pressure on him as possible. Does go for f5. Wow, that's very brave on one point. on one side, I want to say, and I think he's relying on the fact that queen h5 is not working. And yeah, I think it's not. But how are you going to defend against everything? Let's say I just step back here to c2 or to d3, I'm not sure. Bishop c2 seems to be a healthier choice. I do create a lot of threats. Like basically, maybe you don't recognize it, but it's like a checkmate threat in a few moves. If you plays e4 or takes or something, I have bishop b3 check. And if you play king h8, I play rook h7 check, king takes, and queen h5 checkmate. And if you want to stop it, you have to play something like, well, you cannot play knight f6 because the pawn is hanging. You cannot play rook f7 because it's always going to be a pin. You can play g6, but that weakens the king further. Probably you want to play g6 because otherwise the queen is also coming to h5. Bishop e7. He goes for it. It's not helping. It's not stopping my checkmate idea. He plays king h8. It's just checkmate. The only chance, yeah, he can still survive if he plays rook f7, but at least I win an exchange. Yeah, so this is how it works. You create as many threats for your opponent as possible, and it's so difficult to handle all of the pressure. Yes, he recognizes the problem. By the way, I can even play rook takes h7 without... I mean, I can take and then rook h7 or rook h7 immediately. Let me calculate it. Rook h7, if he takes, I have queen h5 check. It goes back the only move, and then I play queen f7 check, king goes back, and again checkmate. And otherwise, this rook is pinned, he cannot do anything. I like that I played bishop c2 and not bishop d3, because this way my bishop is so secured, he can never attack it, never do anything against it. And otherwise, I'm threatening, like even rook h8 immediately is a checkmate threat. If not, then queen h5. Okay, knight f6. Yeah, fair enough. At least he's stopping the checkmate idea. And he wants to play knight d5, although that is questionable because let's say rook h3 back, knight d5, I'm gonna play queen h5, threatening checkmate. Maybe you can still go rook f8 and claim that you're okay here. So maybe yes, the simplest is now to cash in and take that rook on f7. Probably I should do it. I have enough extra material. And another opportunity I just recognize, I have queen b3 check. Ah, wait, he can take there. Yeah, that was a bit stupid of me. I forgot that it's not checkers, he is not obliged to take back. So always, before you make your move, I'm not an exception, I don't make all of the perfect moves, it's still good for me, but before you make your moves, try to understand all sorts of opportunities your opponent has, and always start with the most active opportunities. Both of those moves were captured, so I should have checked both of them. Okay, I actually like it a lot, because I still have a pair of bishops, I have an extra pawn, and I have this absolutely astonishing bishop that he cannot fight against. I played that, I attacked another pawn with a check. The moment he played f5, it went the wrong way for him. He was not ready for such an attack. You cannot open up your king against the bishop's pair of your opponent, open up the position like that, open up your king and expect something good to happen. It just doesn't work like that, I'm sorry. Even if I'm not playing perfectly here, of course, yeah, I should have just played rook h3 back. But anyway, this should be great. Okay, how do I win it here? If I take, he plays queen f5, and at least he has a very active queen there. So maybe I just play queen to f3 instead. He plays a4, I have queen h... Yes, I have queen h3 and then queen h6. If you play knight h5, I have bishop takes f5. I like it. You always want to connect as many pieces as possible to your attack. And also what you want to do, you want to combine developing new pieces and creating threats at the same time. This is always the best case scenario. If you have a way to like create a threat with the same piece that is already active and develop a new one and also create a threat, always prefer developing a new piece. The more pieces you bring into the attack, the stronger it gets, the more complicated it gets for your opponent to handle all of the threats, to deal with all of that pressure. And of course, there is always a chance that he's gonna make a mistake, and the more threats, the more pressure you put on him, the higher this chance gets. So I think a4, e4 would just lose. Yes, because queen h3 and queen h6. That is why he plays that, so that after king g7 he stops the queen h6 checkmate, basically. Maybe I should have played queen d2, although he could have stopped it. Yeah, he could have stopped it with f4. Okay, now if I take, still it's annoying that he's attacking the bishop, and also checkmate threat is not something I want to allow. I might sacrifice here a piece because I win 3 pawns for the bishop and I continue my attack. That is pretty powerful, but maybe I just don't need it. Queen g3 is a move because this is pinned now. He cannot move his pawn, and I'm threatening to take, but yeah, maybe f4 or something. Although f4 I have queen g5. Knight jumps suddenly. Let's see if I do get enough if I sacrifice a piece. I feel so. I'm gonna have 4 pawns for a piece, and my attack goes on. Although it's not really about the pawns in such a position, it's also important to understand it's rather about the threats. I feel like I want to play it because it feels so cool. Bishop g5, like an active move, an alternative, but I don't want him to play 4 and somehow I'm not gonna get enough squares. Yeah, let me go for it. I know that it cannot be bad for me, and I'm gonna continue putting as much pressure on my opponent as possible. So for example, here I'm threatening to take it with a check, so he doesn't have any time for fancy moves like rook h5 or something. And then I want to bring more stuff, create even more threats. For example, knight d7, attacking the pawn, bishop f4, protecting that pawn, threatening e6 with a double threat. The queen and the knight would be hanging. I might play knight d5, but then I can even continue attacking with c4, pushing the knight even further away. Yes, he does that, but now I like it. Bishop f4, yes, he can play rook f8, but I always have a check, the skin is naked, and e6 is gonna come at some point. And of course, I want to add even more pieces into the attack. In the best case scenario, you always want to bring every single one of your pieces into the attack. And also, if he goes away with the rook, at some point I might just push my pawn, because actually all of those pawns are passers. I have 4 connected passers. Can you imagine that? Okay. Can I still play e6? I'm threatening to take the queen, I'm threatening bishop e5, I'm threatening queen f7. That feels like a lot of threats. Maybe he's relying on bishop d6, but I take it, takes queen f7, king h6 is the only move. Queen f7, he has knight g6, and e7. D7 is just winning, right? Because I just promote a new queen. I mean, I can just bring a new piece, but I feel like I give him a little bit of time. Maybe though he has no way, because I thought knight g6 would help him, but rook d7, although, yeah, he's defending that. e6, bishop d6, takes, queen f7. Like, yes, for a moment he creates a huge threat, but he has to play king h6 and block his rook. And then I play e7. I don't see any threats from his side, and I threaten e8 and takes. Yes, it should be winning. And if he just removes his queen, then I have all sorts of ideas, yes. He has to play bishop d6, and now I go for it. Queen f7 is the key move here, and e7 is the key. If you want to play queen f6, that would help him just to play knight g6 and stabilize the situation. But I think the move e7 is what makes the difference here, because he's just maybe one move not in time. If he would be able to play knight g6 before I go e7, then everything is protected. He has the e7 square under control and he can breathe. But this time, that is why it's so important. Once you have, first of all, always to fight for the initiative in chess. The initiative means that you are the one creating threats. You are in the driver's seat, basically. And secondly, once you have this initiative, you always want to use it, because it's going to disappear. Just 1-2 moves, you give your opponents time, and he's gonna stabilize the situation, and your advantage is gone. Your initiative, it's not something that is going to be there forever, like an extra piece if you don't blunder anything. So, oh my god, he plays king to g5, and it actually is smart because he says, well, now it's not going to be a check if you promote the second queen, and I'm gonna give you some checks. Even that is not necessarily so good, but I should be able to stop it. For example, the move f4. If we exchange the queens, then I'm gonna just promote. I'm not gonna take that, although even that is good enough, but I can just promote a second queen. So I play f4 to stop this threat, to block his queen. Always remember, doesn't matter how great your move seems to be, always check your opponent's opportunities first. Checks, captures, and threats. Okay. Again, here, let me check the opportunities. I think it's just winning. He has one check. I can just play king h1, and he has another check, but then it's over. Or I can just start with the move h3 just to create even more space. I like it, because if you play here, I have queen to... Ah, wait, actually I shouldn't do that. Yeah, that might be not such a great idea, because he has knight g6. Okay, but that should still be good enough. That, and I just play king h1. You have a check, but I just take it, and you don't have any checks. Okay, maybe h3 wasn't necessary after all, but should still be good enough, because I have two queens. As long as I'm not checkmated immediately, I'm winning. So here, if I go here, I'm just losing it on the spot, so I have to go here. But then, very, very important that I control this d5 square. Otherwise, rook h3 takes and queen d5 would be a checkmate. But because I control that square, I will just take the queen. Otherwise, I'm threatening, like, as long as I get one move, I always win. But actually, queen e1 is kind of a checkmate immediately. You can still block it, but then, yeah, I'm gonna win another queen. Okay, queen f2. It's not that stupid. I mean, he's still creating a checkmate threat. But again, as soon as I get a move, I will always find a check. Normally, if you have two queens on the board, you'll be able to play actively. And a very good illustration, it doesn't matter how dangerous of a threat your opponent creates, you start with the most active opportunities. I hope this game was a very good example for you of how you want to go about chess if you want to finally reach 2000 ELO in 2025. And in this video, I show you how you can use exactly the same opening as black to crush everyone under 2000 ELO.